And the Masters of the Universe.
Now we all know that no matter how successful a toy line is, it one day is going to get canceled. In the early 80s, no one could beat Kenner Star Wars toys. But in 1985, they got canceled, like any other toy line. In 1987, Mattel canceled the He-Man line, a line that many of us grew up on in the 80s. But why is that? A lot of people have asked me, and I've asked before, what happened in 1987? In 1986, Mattel had over $400 million in sales for their He-Man line, and then in 1987, that $400 million dropped down to $7 million in sales. There's really no one answer to give you why this toy line failed. There was a lot of different reasons that led to the failure. And let's be honest, this was a successful toy line that lasted for years. Most action figures lines maybe last a year, 2, 3 at the very most. But this line started in 1982 and had a 5-year run. That's a long time in the world of action figure. And unlike something like Star Wars that had a new movie to push it every 3 years, He-Man really didn't have anything else to push it except for the cartoon, which really helped sales in the early days. This cartoon was on every day, and it was like a 30-minute ad to buy He-Man toys. Not only did you get He-Man and Skeletor in the cartoon, it introduced a lot of new characters the kids would run out and want to buy. In 1985, 2 years before the end of the line, that cartoon series was canceled. Now it did stay in reruns till about 1988, but come on, let's be honest, reruns are not going to push toy sales. So Mattel lost a daily 30-minute ad. That's gotta hurt. Now I've heard some experts say that the reason the toy line failed is because in 1985 Mattel released She-Ra, a He-Man toy line for girls, and boys didn't want to play with He-Man anymore because their sister liked He-Man, or people from the He-Man universe. This is the most ridiculous reason I've ever heard, and there's been some people that say it. I'm not going to tell you where I heard this at, but I did hear it. So let's try to dig into why this failed in 1987. First, in 1987 there was a financial crash in late 1987. The stock market crashed, and of course that's going to hurt sales of anything. But there's more to it than just having a 30-minute ad on TV every day and the crash of the stock market. One thing that probably really did hurt this is the fan base was getting out of He-Man. Most of the kids that were playing with He-Man started buying them around 1982, 1983. By 1987, these kids were in their mid-teens, had moved on from action figures. And the new kids, well, they were getting into Transformers and other toy lines of that time. Without the cartoon to help sell it to the younger kids, you can see why this toy line was on the decline. And the hottest new toy line that was picking up steam was Transformers. Those He-Man figures seemed like something your brother would play with, but these Transformers, they were more than met the eye. But we can't just blame it on financial crash, no cartoon to help promote the line, or even kids moving on to something else. Mattel made some mistakes also. One thing Mattel did that really hurt the line is they shipped out what they had plenty of inventory on. They shipped out all kinds of figures and very few of He-Man and Skeletor. If you're a new kid wanting to get into the He-Man line, why would you want to start playing with a line if you couldn't find the main villain or the main hero? Made no sense. And when you had all these figures that people really didn't know hitting the store, they sat on the shelves. The main figures would sell, but the other ones would just sit there, and stores started getting worried. This line is dying, they would think. Or they would have to clearance out the stock they had. Either way, it caused stores not to order more. So even kids that still played with He-Man, it was very hard for them to find new figures in late 1986 and 1987. Mattel's marketing director at the time, Mark Ellis, even said this in an interview. He stated that at the beginning of the toy line, Mattel was very careful about the assortment of figures they would put out. But then later in the run, they would just ship out whatever they had a lot of inventory of. This would cause third-tier figures to sit around in stores, taking up retail space, and causing stores to worry that the line was dying and not order new stock. So that's a big problem right there. And then, what could have saved this line was a live-action movie in 1987 that tanked.
At the far end of the universe, there is a planet ruled by a being of utter evil.
If you ask me, the movie is really too late. If they did a He-Man live-action movie around 1984-85, I think it would have been a big hit. But by 1987, kids were starting to get out of He-Man anyway. The cartoon was already gone. But let's be honest, this He-Man cartoon wasn't too good. I mean, it's kind of cheesy fun to watch now, but at the time, it was horrible. And if you were a fan of the He-Man cartoon or even the comic books, this wasn't the movie you were hoping for. I mean, come on. He-Man was on Earth, and there was no Orko. No Orko. That's all you have to know right there. So this movie bombed. So it really didn't help push kids into collecting He-Man toys. And in 1987, you had something that was dominating toy stores that wasn't action figure based.
What will the future bring from Nintendo?
The Nintendo Entertainment System was released in 1985, but by 1987 it was a dominating force in the toy industry. A lot of kids were putting down plastic toys and picking up a plastic controller. So that's a lot of factors. First, the cartoon series was gone, so you didn't have it to help promote the line. You had Mattel screw up and sending too much of their inventory of figures no one cared about to stores, making stores think, hey, nobody cares about this toy line anymore. Kids couldn't find He-Man and Skeletor. I mean, let's be honest, if you were just getting into this toy line, how could you buy Fisto and some of the new figures if you didn't have Skeletor or He-Man? And then, of course, you had the financial crash of 1987. You had the failed movie that didn't help any at all. You had the kids that grew up on He-Man getting too old for toys. You had Transformers peaking in sales. And you had Nintendo competing with kids playing with action figures. All of this was a perfect storm that spelled the end of the He-Man Masters of the Universe line. Again, this line ran for 5 years. You can't feel sorry for this line, and it's still popular today. And like I said earlier, toy lines usually last a year, 2, 3 at the most. So to get a 5-year run out of this toy line, Mattel has to be happy. Can't look at this as a failure. As they say, all good things must come to an end. I can still remember buying these figures, seeing them at the store. I remember one time my dad went down to the feed store, and I think I went with him to pick up some twine or something. And wait a minute. That wasn't me. That was Laura Ingalls. I always get us mixed up. Anyway, that's a look at why the He-Man toy line failed. It wasn't because girls had She-Ra action figures. I've heard some stupid shit in my life. This is top 100 for sure. That's the dumbest thing I heard. Anyway, thank you for watching. In the comments below, let me know why you stopped buying He-Man action figures. And as always, please thumb up so I know you like my content. Subscribe so I know you like my channel. And we'll talk again soon.
See you next time.
Hey, Junkman channel popping though.
Thank you, sir, for that unsolicited testimony.